Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we check out Super Eyepatch with the Unreality of Pro Wrestling. A lot of people in the comments for actually a couple videos now have said, dude, you need to check out Super Eyepatch's video on Roman Reigns. Considering I think that's a wrestler he mentioned before, and there's only one more wrestling video left at the time of recording, so hopefully there's more coming, I'm assuming it's this video. Here's the thing. Other than I mentioned Super Eyepatch Wolf has made about Roman Reigns being a wrestler and there being some kind of contention, that's it. I got nothing. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And frankly, if Super Eyepatch Wolf's videos have been any indication, that's fine. I'm going to love this. And I just really want to jump right in and see what's going on, because a lot of his videos have been going between wrestling is real, wrestling isn't real. And I have no idea what the unreality specifically of it is going to be about, because with his videos, it go either way. Let's see what happens. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. Link below, video. Hit it up. Let's get started.
I want you to imagine the greatest moments of your entire life. Imagine after years of sweat and struggle, you've finally made it to the place you've always dreamed of. Now, imagine that moment surrounded by 17,000 people.
Nope.
Outraged
That would not be my
and
greatest moment.
appalled
What?
by you. And this isn't right. You're...
And if I'm wrong, that could be Roman Reigns behind him, or just some other long-haired wrestler. I'm assuming by saying greatest moment and everyone's appalled, he was a heel that people hated and he was scripted to win?
meant to be
Isn't
their
that all the time?
hero. They're meant to be cheering for you, but they're not. Instead, they scream how you shouldn't be here. You do not deserve this. You have ruined the thing they love. As much as it might sound like I'm describing the comment section of one of my YouTube videos,
I didn't want to say anything, but yeah, you have no idea, because wow, that is a thing. Hell, even I deal with that. On the other hand, I don't understand why someone would come and say, dude, why are you watching a video when I can watch it myself somewhere else? I just have to go and stop for a second and just think. Wait, you're complaining that you could watch a video somewhere else. You didn't watch it somewhere else, but you watched something you didn't know you would like, but you knew you wouldn't like it, so you watched it anyways. I'm just going to file that under comments that give you brain damage.
this actually happened in real life to a real person on the night
How much of it was scripted, though?
2015, to a man
Oh, it's real.
named Joe Anawai.
2015. I was going to say that's recent. That is 9 years ago. That is almost a decade ago. Super Eyepatch Wolf, why'd you gotta do me like that? Why'd you just have to stick that knife in?
Also known as Roman Reigns.
Joe and Hawaii?
And
Honestly, that's not a
I'm
bad name on its
kind
own.
of obsessed with this night, not only because it is perhaps the most catastrophic disaster in the history of pro wrestling storytelling.
Wait, what?
But because
Oh! Oh. So if it's a disaster in storytelling, then was he not a heel scripted to... Oh, this actually just became a lot more interesting.
it's a moment when you can see the fictional reality of pro wrestling separate from the actual reality experienced by its audience. And that right there, that is why I love pro wrestling.
When the unreality
The
and
story
reality
we're going to
becomes a
talk
thing.
about today being maybe
When the
my
Kaiser
favorite
Frob isn't...
example.
Kaiser Frobe, however you say that,
It's a
becomes the
story where
reality,
This
not just the
disastrous
act.
night is just one small part. A story that started over 10 years ago and is still ongoing to this day.
This came out 9 months ago. So when he says 10 years ago, he means 2014. I need to stop doing math. It hurts.
A story that I love so much that I will talk about it at parties till my friends start to back away from me and refuse to look me in the eye. And
This does happen. It happens to me frequently, and my wife as well. In her case, it's because she brought up, hey, have you heard about all the horrible ghost stories around 9/11? Yeah. And then everyone else who's getting ready to go to a suicide training the next day for work. You're just sitting there going like, why did you choose this right now? Is this a hint? I'm not projecting right now. This actually happened. Yeah. There was a how to deal with this type seminar at work. And I just had to sit there the entire night going, why are you listening to horror stories about all these people dying? This is not okay. You know what's happening. Am I being told something? Do I need to buy you flowers? I need to buy you flowers. I should go out and buy you flowers. It's midnight. That's fine. There's probably someplace I can drive. If I go fast enough, I can get there before it closes. It's only 3 time zones over. Needless to say, I bought her flowers.
Maybe that's you. Maybe you look at the length of this video and think, wow, that is an utterly clownish amount of time for an adult to spend talking about pro wrestling.
An hour, 3 minutes. Honestly, considering some of the long-form documentary styles on YouTube nowadays, this counts as short.
You've got me there, but you are kind of who I'm making
there is a
this
10-hour breakdown of Phantom
wrestling
Menace.
Can be, well, an absolute fucking shit show, but it can also create stories that are so genuine and human, ones that punch through the artifice of any fictional reality and become real.
Oh, I get it. So he's talking about not just the Kaiser Fraud moments, but where you have something that the audience realizes in defiance of everything else. Kind of like how Triple H hated people who fucked around with his career, and that wasn't entirely an act. Huh.
And my goal here today is to
Or is this when the act was
non-wrestling fan
not at all?
See that. But first,
what? I don't know what this is, but I like it. He actually has an eye patch wolf. Why does that look like a clown about to murder you? Summer collection? Oh, he has merch? Ooh, neat. That is a clown about to murder you. Damn. Might get that journal from my wife. Eyepatch wolves? Why is it plural? Have I been saying his name wrong?
okay.
No, it's singular.
This story starts over 10 years ago, and a little setup is required. At any point, a wrestling promotion is going to be attempting to build its next top star, the face of the company around whom all major storylines can be built, who can sell millions in merch and penetrate the mainstream, creating new wrestling fans. Because without that top star who is over with the audience, wrestling promotions can see a disastrous drop in revenue. And that fear is going to play a huge part in our story. See, this was a period when WWE's current face of the promotion, John Cena, had been on top for nearly 10 years.
Wait. He's not the current? I knew I was out of date, but I thought he was the current face of WWE. Or E or S or US, whatever it's called. This was 10 years ago. He was the face for 10 years. So I am so far out of date, it's not even funny.
Cena now feeling the pull of Hollywood, meaning WWE needed to find its next megastar, and it needed it now. Two potential options being the men Cena would face this night. One being CM Punk, a former indie wrestler beloved by hardcore fans for his ability to make wrestling feel real, but to WWE management, perhaps a little too real. The other being Ryback, a man with a physique resembling 2 shaved bears wrestling for dominance.
I'll be completely honest right now. If this wasn't a Super Eyepatch Wolf video and someone just showed me this clip right now, I would think this man is taken from a wrestling video game where you installed mods for unrealistically high amounts of muscles without steroids. Although if you include steroids, this makes a lot more sense, but goddamn, there is no neck. He just has shoulder on top of shoulder, and then he just has a bigger bulge that just happens to meet his chin. How do you do that? Steroid. It's probably steroids.
Which appealed greatly to the real-life WWE owner and legitimate fucking crazy person, Vince McMahon, who...
Oh, I already hate this guy now. I know just enough about Vince McMahon to realize anything he likes, you should run away from. I don't think Super Eyepatch Wolf will mention this because I think this came out more recently than 9 months ago, maybe like 4 months ago. But basically, I can't go into detail on the shit this man did. The actual, he is getting in legal trouble shit this man did. Let's put it this way. If you want an idea of what he did, Google it. Google it in a dark place where no one will see you do it, not public, and delete your browser history because you will feel dirty afterwards. Also, it rhymes with Einstein.
Whose oddly obsessive yet bizarrely platonic love of man muscle meant that a lot of people were now speculating that this would be the night where a decisive Ryback victory would...
I just said, he just dropped that line in there. It's the perfect straight line because they're right. It is a platonic love of man muscle because he got in trouble for everything else he did. That's literally the one thing about him that was, if it was not platonic, it would have been safer for him and everyone else around him and all of the other victims. Yeah, the more you learn about this man, I almost want Super Eyepatch Wolf to do a deep dive onto him, but it would never make it on YouTube. It would have to go on, like, you know what? The only place I could think of that would have stringent enough exceptions would be OnlyFans. The only Super Eyepatch Wolf OnlyFans video, because nowhere else could show that level of, oh God, why?
Would see him crowned as the next face of the company. And that is not what happened. As the match enters its closing moments and a Ryback victory starts to feel inevitable, 3 completely unknown men entered the ring and like a swarm of black hornets engulfed Ryback. And there was something so powerful about this image. This giant of a man being devoured by this cloud of darkness as they ripped the match apart, decimating Ryback. This was the first introduction of the Shield. 3 brand new wrestlers. Their names, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and Roman Reigns.
Why? So they literally just ended the most important fight to figure out who's going to become the face of the organization and be responsible for the actual sales going up. And they just pull a random, no worry, neither of them win. Why? I mean this on an actual business sense. This looks stupid. I think that's probably the problem.
This pattern would repeat as regularly scheduled matches would be hijacked and destroyed by the Shield. It didn't matter who you were or what you did. If you were an employee of the WWE, you were part of the problem the Shield was here to dismantle. And it was exciting. When the Shield's music hit, you knew you were about to see something real and violent. And you got...
And it's also doing with the meta-narrative of WWE being the problem, so they're setting these guys up as antagonists. And because you're putting someone initially that Vince liked as the victim, it's giving him the credibility to say, see, all these people who are angry at us, and we got these guys going for it. Considering a lot of things I talked about with Vince McMahon were not new, that was probably an actual consideration. It suddenly makes a lot more sense. They can sell their audience the meta-narrative they want them to believe before they actually have to say it.
Understand, this was during the PG era, in which a child-friendly WWE would feature cartoonish characters like Santino Marello, a man who would win matches by transforming his arm into a sentient snake and paralyzing people. But now, it felt like that cartoonish world was being invaded by 3 very real, very dangerous men.
I've heard they've had some dumb ideas, but I thought interrupting the title match was a dumb one, but no, apparently everything else was so incredibly stupid. This doesn't even look bad by comparison anymore. Was it always this dumb? You know what, considering some of the random things they had people pull off in the previous videos, probably, yeah.
And everything about the Shield's presentation enhanced that feeling. Their promos
I'm
were
actually
shot on
surprised
staticky handheld cameras. They came to the ring in combat gear and steel-toed boots. They didn't have a big, elaborate fireworks-filled entrance. They just emerged from the crowd like a group of silent killers. And suddenly, it would feel like the pageantry of the PG era was coming to an end under a hail of black-clad fists and feet. And it was fucking badass. But maybe the most striking thing about
Still
the
feels
Shield was
weird,
the
but I guess
intensity of those attacks.
and that's why it worked. Okay. It's kind of weird though, because learning more about it, the entire thing, if they're going from a PG era, is like, hey, this isn't working, we need to change the branding. Having something edgy does change branding. That makes a lot more sense then. Okay, I can kind of see why that was done, but how does this lead into him not being like then?
Years later in Dean Ambrose's autobiography, Mox.
What?
The first night at Survivor Series, our mission was to destroy Ryback. Punk had put it in our ear that people might be in Ryback's ear telling him not to sell for us.
Oh.
Just a note here, if someone doesn't sell for you in wrestling, it means they make it look like your offense doesn't hurt, which can make you look weak. As would be our philosophy in these cases going forward, there's 3 of us and 1 of him.
Oh, so the reason it looks super violent is because they were being super violent in case someone wasn't selling that it hurt, so they had to make sure it actually hurt. Oh, that doesn't cross any legal lines at all.
We beat the fuck out of Ryback. We were pros and we never hurt anybody, but there was a lot of busted lips, black eyes, and bruises. The Shield were like a lightning strike to WWE, but it still didn't prepare anyone for what would happen in their first match, which would come 1 month after their debut.
This is only over the course of a month?
2012. In which they now face the combination of Ryback, Kane, and Daniel Bryan. Real name, Bryan Danielson. Wrestling is...
Seriously? His wrestling name is just his name backwards without the sen? That just seems lazy.
Very silly. No one really knew what to expect from this match because Kane, Bryan, and Ryback were all good.
I'm sorry, but I'm looking at this man. All I can think is, where's the hat where I could put the dollar in? He looks homeless. It's not his fault. Okay, actually, it probably entirely is. He's literally going for homeless chic here. It's the richest homeless man I've ever seen. I feel like I should be giving him a ride to the shelter so we can get somewhere to stay for the night. It just, why?
Good guys and popular ones. Characters that WWE had put a lot of time and money into building up. Whereas the Shield were newcomers and bad guys at that. Traditional wrestling storytelling dictating that this would be the night where they'd receive a much-deserved ass-whooping and slide back down the mid-card. But what played out felt less like a traditional wrestling match and more like gang violence. Individually,
which is what they were trying to go for.
Of Ryback, Kane, and Bryan, and in storyline, they'd nearly certainly defeat any single member of the Shield. But the Shield didn't fight as individuals. They were a unit, swarming and devouring their bigger, more experienced opponents. The good guys might get the best of 1 member of the Shield, hell, maybe 2, but that's when they'd be blindsided by a 3rd, dragged to the ground and obliterated in a hail of boots and fists. Despite there being the same numbers on both sides, Ryback, Kane, and Bryan felt constantly overwhelmed and disorganized, whereas the Shield were an efficient, violent machine, working...
It almost feels like they're trying to build him up right here because Reigns is part of this. I'm wondering if the hatred for him becomes less, oh, you're now the heel or now the face, because it seems like that's the reason he would win if he was disappointed, and more, he's being built up as a villain, and I guess breaking from it might do it? I'm actually curious what's going to be the point that people start hating him. Because right now it seems like they're effectively making him and his 2 teammates the guys who are just going to get in there and we're going to fucking win, man. Doesn't matter how, we're the bad guys. We're going to do what we need to do to win. That's all that matters. And considering the snake puppet guy, there are things I did not think I would say out loud, and that is just still embarrassing. Yeah, they are very much the shot of adrenaline that something that involves a snake puppet would need. How did they fuck that up? Or at least the audience get fucked up on the idea of liking him.
In
'Cause it seems like hating him would be its own thing.
Even sacrificing their own bodies for the greater good of their team. When the bell finally sounded, audiences sat stunned as the Shield stood victorious. The message was clear. Individually, these men were dangerous. As a faction, they were unstoppable.
And I think I see why they're going to hate him, because the initial narrative is not he's amazing, it's that they're amazing. Okay.
As the Shield continued to build momentum, the personalities of each individual member became more pronounced. Apart from being a technical genius in the ring, Seth was the architect, the cerebral tactician who would coordinate his Shield brothers from the sidelines, using them to create openings through which he would strike with a pinpoint brutality. Dean Ambrose was nearly the total opposite, an uncontrollable wild man who lacked the technicality of Seth or the athleticism of Roman, but made up for it with sheer violent passion, adept at both receiving and dealing massive amounts of punishment.
Damn.
But maybe even more critically,
I don't know why, but every time I look at this guy, I just think standard Boston bar goer. It's probably the red hair. That's literally all that goes through my head right now. It's literally all there is. Especially the entire mention of violence. I might be biased because my family is initially from Southie, but if any of the words I just said make sense, you probably also agree with me.
Dean was also the group's mouthpiece. His mic work had this captivating, laid-back tension to it that meant watching him deliver a Shield promo felt like talking to a cool stranger at a bar who might just be thinking about beating the shit out of you.
Okay, so apparently I was straight on there. Yeah. Like I said, standard Boston bargoer. Yeah. Also, am I the one who thinks Roman Reigns kind of looks like knockoff Jason Momoa? Am I the only one? I can't. I might be. Yeah, I'm probably the only one.
And there was the silent intensity of Roman Reigns. Roman had this quiet charisma that meant he didn't need to do or say a lot to be captivating, but he was. With a massive body yet freakish athleticism, any tag to Roman was the most exciting moment of a Shield match, as he bulldozed through enemies, saving their defeats and clenching close victories. Any one of these men would have been compelling by themselves, but together, there was something more. The Shield didn't just feel like the bad guys of someone else's story. They were three people to whom being a member of the Shields really seemed to mean something.
Oh, I wonder if this was inspired by some of the things going down on the Japanese side of wrestling that Super Eyepatch Wolf already covered. Because this seems like some of those band team-ups. Huh. I have no idea how much of the management and decision-making was aware of things across the ocean. I was going to say pond, and I realized that's the other side.
Unlike other groups in wrestling, no one ever joined or left the Shields. That doesn't count! And despite being bad guys, there were times you could see them show real
I guess teams were on this side already,
affection towards each other. You could see it in the moments when one member of the Shield would do something awesome and the other two would look genuinely ecstatic. You could see it in how they'd celebrate each other's victories with a real gleeful delight. You could see it in the genuine care and concern they'd show each other after especially brutal matches, helping support their fallen brothers and carry them backstage. And it all made it feel like there was something real at the core of this story of these three men alone in the hostile and competitive landscape of WWE. Three men who believed in, trusted, and relied on only each other. And I think the reason that connection felt so real is because it was.
Oh?
One of the most difficult things to convey to...
Now that's actually interesting. So this is one of the times where the reality is more important than the fiction.
Non-wrestling fans about wrestling is how competitive it really is. Yeah, matches are predetermined, but what isn't is the ongoing battle for TV time. In professional wrestling, the most limited...
I am legitimately surprised this didn't get them canceled. Not because it's insensitive in any way, shape, or form. It probably is. I don't care enough. But because Nintendo, or not Nintendo... Who owns the rights to this again? Whoever owns the rights didn't sue the pants off every single person involved. This is lawsuit bait.
valuable and sought-after commodity there is TV time, as it's time on television that allows
And at least it wasn't a
wrestlers
Disney
to
character.
get
That would have definitely
over
killed
with
him.
the audience, to sell merch, to build storylines, which leads to high-paying pay-per-view matches. Any wrestler getting a decent amount of TV time invariably means dozens of wrestlers who are not, and very quickly, cliques, locker room politics, and resentments can form, leading to bullying, harassment, and vicious hazing. That is the very real, very hostile environment Colby Lopez, Jonathan Good, and Joe Anoa'i.
Wait. His last name is actually Good. They had a guy with the perfect tagline already, and they didn't use that. That's just insane to me. Like, legitimately, you need The Rock, John Cena. You got Good. What is he? He's good. And then it's kind of stupid on its own. But if he's the bad guy, yeah, it's like naming a giant guy Tiny. It just narratively fits. Missed opportunity on that one. Granted, I like dumb humor like that. I'm pretty sure other people would go, oh God, why? No, God, please, no. To which I say, while you're probably right, I ignore that completely and say my own thing instead.
He entered in WWE, or to quote another extract from Dean's autobiography, Seth told me another story once about some guys who obviously didn't like him, trying to get him to drink with them. Not in
So
a
they can
friendly,
fuck him up.
dude, let's have a beer way, but in a, hey, we think you're cocky, so we're going to get you to do a bunch of shots to prove you're one of the boys.
And then fuck him up.
Way. Seth's not a drinker. My fucking blood boiled. That's my boy. This kind of shit brought us together. In storyline, the Shield were these three outsiders whose success, whose fate relied on each other. But in reality, they were the exact same. Three outsiders trying to break into the hostile landscape of WWE, whose careers, whose livelihood, whose real ability to provide for their families depended on each other. Their combined capacity to make this concept of the Shield work. And they'd spend nearly all their time together. As three young broke wrestlers, the Shield would, in order to save money, ride from town to town together, whiling away the dozens of hours of car travel in each other's company, the roadside diners, the pit stops, everything. Even split.
I'm going to be honest, that is probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen. And I do just mean this moment right here, where there's an entire clip about them being outside, and he has the ability to do a roll. Now, that might sound stupid, but as someone who has had to take so many goddamn 10-hour drives, the ability to walk after sitting on your ass that long is not always a certainty. The ability to do that and not immediately just lay down and die or wish you were dead, that is actually impressive. This is a feat of athleticism that really shouldn't ever have been attributed to anyone, because why would you do that to yourself? Like, after a long drive, any drive at all, that just no. Just no.
Even splitting cheap two-person hotel rooms, Roma and Seth taking the beds, Dean sleeping on the floor.
I don't even know what I'd do in my life without you. Guess what? You are so sweet, and I love you so much, and you are a great father. You keep talking to me like this, I'm gonna take you to dinner, and I'm paying. You will not leave the tip.
You don't go through all that.
I know it's a stupid bit, and they're just basically being the angry happy joke there, but I've literally had that argument with my wife. Yeah, that's I feel a little called out.
Without forming a real connection with someone. And it was that real connection that resonated with people, to the point that even years later, after Dean had left the company, he'd get this kind of reaction from performing Seth's curb stomp finisher.
What? Wait, left the company? Oh, that's, if I'm right, NJPW? Oh, New Japan. Oh, he went to Japan. So the team broke up and he went over to Japan.
The real life connection of these three men. That's what made it easy to believe in the Shield. And oh boy, did the internet run with it. Hello and welcome to...
Oh no. Okay, I am not sure how much of anything he says next is going to go, but if there's one thing about 3 guys having a bromance, the internet runs with it. If you don't go immediately to, I need to blur out everything on the screen after this, you have not been on the internet long enough. Oh God, you are so new here. Hi, I'm Airier. Stop watching the internet. You're going to burn your eyes. If you're still here, you're going to be dragged down with the rest of us.
To a very special episode of What the Internet Did to The Shield. See, not only were The Shield wildly successful in WWE, but outside it. In fact, entire fan communities were built around shipping the different members of The Shield.
How distinct.
Raw Lanes, Ambrose and Reigns were Ambrains, and Ambrose and Rollins, by far the most popular pairing of the 3, were Ambrawlanes. And oh boy, let me tell you, some of that fan fiction. After a bad break.
Is this AI generated? It looks so over the top. It can't possibly be real. And yet I kind of want it to be real. Nah, there's no way. Also, those were much tamer images than I thought he might put up. Granted, he's on YouTube as well, so he probably knows exactly how much he's not allowed to show. But also, that's never stopped a few people. Nux. More importantly, yeah. I'm kind of surprised no one brought up the concept of a thruple, which I've been told is actually a word. I have no idea if I'm using it right. I might have just said a slur, and for all I know, with my luck, it probably was, damn it.
Wake up. Seth Rollins leaves the Midwest to lifeguard for an aquatics facility in Orlando and restart his life. After everything he's been through, does he have what it takes to dive into love again? You might be asking, what is
lifeguard,
the point of
dive,
bringing this
really?
up? To which I would respond, well, what's the fucking point in anything? But I do think it genuinely shows 2 things. One, the Shield are doing something only the most successful acts in wrestling do. Reaching new audiences you wouldn't traditionally associate with pro wrestling.
And I'll add on to the fact that this was happening at a time where wrestling was PG, and you had gimmicks that were not just gimmicky, but I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't PG. It was literally a 5-year-old saying G rating would be like, you know what? I don't think we need to go that high. If we have anything a little harder, like Caillou, which then you immediately turn the TV off because the kid likes Caillou and they have really no taste. But that would still be the comparison they make.
In this case, to overgeneralize a little bit, young women who were into fan fiction. And 2,
Fujoshi.
I think it's also evidence that the reason the Shield were resonating with people wasn't just because they were 3 badass dudes, but because of the real connection between them. The emotional connection.
Yeah.
And
if apparently the most popular ship is not the one that stuck around.
That feeling of you and an invincible group of friends against the world. And honestly, it was kind of beautiful. It was a really cool thing to believe in. But that investment came with attention. Also, I changed into my new Eyepatch Wolves shirt.
It's a good shirt.
Because it just arrived and I love it. Also, WWE will 99% take all my money from this video.
Okay, full disclosure, I actually wanted to watch more of the video than this, but then I realized maybe starting the time to record at 11 p.m. at night was not maybe the best idea when I looked over and saw what time it was and realized that I had made a terrible mistake and I really am not going to be awake tomorrow morning. And you know what? It's fine. There's always caffeine. It's only 400 milligrams of caffeine. I'll be fine. I don't need a heart. That still beats. More importantly, this is actually really interesting because it seems like we're getting into a story of someone who is going to break after he leaves the Shield, or the Shield breaks apart and he remains. Considering we saw the one guy in New Japan, I'm assuming it breaks apart, but I don't know. Maybe he left after, maybe it happened before. I don't know enough yet. But it's really heartwarming right now. If there's one thing I've learned from Super Eyepatch Wolf, I shouldn't trust that outside of his wrestling videos, because inside of his wrestling videos, they've usually been pretty heartwarming. Even the horrible stuff has been moderated by things not being horrible because he's never actually focused on Vince McMahon. And the more I say about that, the less I want to say anything else, because it really does hurt. More importantly, though, this is really cool. And I like seeing how this narrative is happening, how we're getting the characters who are also their legitimate real selves reflected into it. And How they convinced management to go along with that, I don't know. But I mean, if they were going with a guy with a snake hand as a pitch, they were probably desperate for anyone who had an idea that didn't sound like something that would be rejected by Sesame Street. Also, if you see some of the Sesame Street bloopers, dear God, the people responsible, man, know what they're doing, and they know what they should never actually let go on live air. They got some fun ones. Things I never thought I would say, but then you see them and you're like, oh, yeah, these are adults who actually have a really good sense of humor, and they can never let their audience see it. More importantly, again, links below to the original video if you haven't already. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen because I know we're running towards a cliff to see whatever drama happens, and I'm kind of here for it. Is that horrible of me? Yeah, but I mean, it's the internet. If you're not used to that kind of level of horribleness, I mean, I already gave the entire spiel about, hi, welcome to the internet. It's going to be horrible. I probably could do it again, but I don't feel like I need to because you're still here. You have earned whatever fate happens. You're condemned like the rest of us. Welcome. All the same. See you guys in the next one. Adios.